Hi, and welcome to another training session. In this video, I will show you how to install Codeigniter on your web server. And if you don't know or not that familiar with Codeigniter, it is a very lightweight platform for PHP to get started with custom websites. So first thing we do is search for it and download it. And we want the updated version in this case. Codeigniter is based on the popular idea of a model, a view, and a controller. The controller is sort of the interpoint where you collect your get and post data. Your views are where you keep your HTML files. Your models is where you handle all of your business logic and connecting to the database to grab data. So we downloaded the Codeigniter and we want to copy all the files into a folder under your root. We make a folder and call it Codeigniter. Let's paste them in there. Now the folders are in there. Let me explain what these folders are real quick. The application folder is where you particularly keep your files and modify them and edit them. That's your folder, and you have your system folder, which contains all the core files of Codeigniter. And you don't want to edit any of these files and folders, especially if you plan on upgrading Codeigniter later. Then you have your user guide folder. Let's gander at it. Oops, that's pretty strange. Okay. So this contains your documentation for this particular Codeigniter version. And I like to keep mine with my site in case I ever need to refer back to it. But generally, I just search online, search Google, and you'll find what you're looking for. Codeigniter is fairly popular, so there's quite a big community around it. That's basically it right there. Let's go into your application folder. Then you have your controllers. Well, first of all, you have your config. You have your helpers, where you just contain basic functions in here. The PHP files in this folder will contain functions. Then your hooks, where you can sort of hook into the system, whether it be at a certain time or after a certain time, whatever. Your libraries, like if you wanted to download libraries or make your own. There's nothing that comes with Codeigniter initially, because this is a framework for you to build your own application. So you have your models folder where you contain your models for business logic, and then you have your views, and there's already one here, which is your home page currently. Let's look at it. So this is your home page. Welcome to Codeigniter. Let's open this file up, and you can see the HTML that makes it up. Let's back out, go to controllers. Your controllers and your views kind of work together. You can see one is created welcome.php. Let's open it up. It's a class, and the class name has to match your file name, but I have seen the file names be lowercase before. You have your functions here. Index is what you use to start with, and I can show you why here in a moment, why you'll want an index. And then you want to load your view, which is welcome message. This view here has to match, in the views folder, a PHP file. So that's how it works. You don't want to display HTML inside of a controller. Now I'll tell you, I went already through 2 iterations of this video trying to get something to work particularly. Let's go into config. Config.php contains your configurations for Codeigniter. Well, let's remove this index page, index.php, because we're going to be using mod rewrite. We want search engine friendly URLs. Index.php, everything is after it. So let's look at this for a moment because we have index.php. It would look like this. This is exactly valid as this. But when your website becomes more complicated, you're going to be seeing that index.php / and then something else. So let's remove this, and we're actually going to be using Apache to handle it. Okay, I already had an HT access already made, but it doesn't want to copy. I added the HT access file, and these particular lines tell the web server to go ahead and use search engine friendly URLs. This one says if it's a file, don't care about it, and if it's a directory, don't care about this either. But I'll tell you what I did and why it took me 2 iterations. Because first of all, this is an Apache, brand new Apache installation. I had to say allow override so that htaccess could override Apache settings in directories in the htdocs directory. Also, of course, the important thing is the module. It's a module in Apache. I had to enable it to get it to work. Now we should see search engine friendly URLs. Let's go back into our controllers. We see our welcome file. Let's copy it and paste it. Let's call it practice. We need to edit it. And then let's just leave all this the same. We're still loading the same view. Practice. Yep. See, and that works right there. Let's go ahead and make a view. Well, we won't even copy it. We'll just say PHP info. Edit it and just say that's it. All right, we go back and we still need to include this somewhere. So we go back into our controllers, into practice. And I know these are already open, but I just like going into the folders for a bit of practice. What did I say? PHP info, like that. You don't need to say .php. And we just refresh, and there's our PHP info. We have 2 controllers now. So let's look at something else. So we've seen practice. Let's clean this up a bit. I like to do it this way. Now, we've seen index, but let's look at something else. Let's include the same view. You don't want to just output HTML in a controller. You just don't want to do that because it's not designed that way. You'll find the way that the model view controller system works is actually very nice. Let's go to look at hello, and just so that we can look at the clarity, go in here, make a new file in the views, call it hello. Of course, that's the most basic thing we can do right now is just hello world. Where was I? Controllers. Okay, so let's open it up. We're in our practice controller. We're under hello, but now we need to change this view name to hello. Go back and refresh. Okay, so now we're still in the index. And the same thing is valid here if we go to practice / index. But if you wanted a subfolder inside of practice, you can say hello. That function we just created now gives us that right here, hello. So that's what we just did. One final thought, I think, is to access the database because Codeigniter allows us a very nice way to access the database. So the username is root, and I don't know if you saw that, in your config folder, you'll see database.php, and that's where you configure your database. Password. We created a website actually just earlier today, Joomla, so I'm just going to go ahead and use that database. Save it. And in order for this database to work, under the config folder still, we use autoload.php. If you want your libraries or helpers or models or anything like that to load with the system, then you just want to include it in here. Database is a library. In fact, let me show you what happens if I don't include it. And I'll show you another way to include it as well. So we've got our database configured, and we haven't set our autoload. Let's go back into practice. I won't go into too much detail right now, but if you're actually pulling data from the database, it's probably better to do it inside of a model. Maybe a library, but usually a model. I think most definitely. So let's execute some simple query. And let's find a good table to pull from. Yeah, okay, there's Joomla, our database, and let's just choose, oh, I don't know, let's just assets. And I'm going to copy that there. Doesn't really matter which one I'm using right now. Yeah, just like that. All right, so now when we execute this, we should see an error. Undefined property DB right there, because we haven't initialized the database. So as you saw earlier, I could have made it auto load with the system, but if you need something only like once or twice, then you could just do this. Load either a helper, you can load a model, you can load a library, and the database is a library. Save it and go back and refresh. Unable to load the requested class database. Had to pause for a moment. So apparently Codeigniter has updated their system a little bit, so where instead of doing it this way, you say load live database and then refresh. But I got this error because I typed in Joomla wrong. So back in database.php, just remove that third O circle there, and you can see unable to connect to your database server. I need to really find a different browser because I'm used to looking at the refresh. Okay, there it is. Hello world. So we're in our database. We have successfully, and you can't see it right now. Let's look at it actually. Look at the data that comes out. It's actually pretty neat. Okay. So this particular Codeigniter instance probably has a lot that has been changed. I noticed that they do that, but it doesn't really take very long to adapt to the new situations and the new functions. I'm Cody, coming from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Leave a comment, or if you have any questions, you can leave a comment, or if you thought it was helpful, leave a thumbs up or a thumbs down if it wasn't helpful to you. See ya.